To resist what?
To resist
Your racism
this
against
authoritarian government. Because when things become more authoritarian, people go to fear and ignorance.
We're starting off again as our video got censored by Castanet News, and we start our $15,000 campaign to fight it. We are Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Police Brutality Kelowna, Jeff Mantler, and CHBC News was censored today by Castanet News, erroneously citing copyright law violations. They are the ones who broke the law, and we're starting our campaign to ensure freedom of speech in the Okanagan. Join us. We need champions just like you to stand up, because activism is working everywhere, and we know the government is starting to get scared. They're paying attention. So we've got the next segment, the next 15 minutes lined up to talk about Idle No More.
That's right, and we're going to be talking about the Indian Act and the fact that not many people know about what's in it.
We're also going to be talking about Chief Spence taken to hospital. All of our thoughts and prayers go out to her. But we also are here to encourage you and the events that we have happening. And to say a big shout out to all of our friends, the general manager and the sales department at Castanet, as we encourage people to boycott the businesses that are advertising on Castanet, and we start promoting the businesses in competition with those advertisers.
That's right. For those interested, they can get a hold of Castanet at 250-860-5050. And to speak to the general manager and sales manager, that would be extension 106.
So make sure you get informed, phone them up, ask them why they broke the law, why they stopped a video about police brutality from going out and talking about the truth. And to get you informed about the Indian Act and the reason why you need to join Idle No More, please watch this.
All Canadians are equal before the law. At least that's what we like to believe. But the terrible reality is, here in Canada, we don't all have the same rights and freedoms. In fact, by law, Canada's Indian population is prohibited from enjoying the same rights as all other Canadians do. Why, you ask? It all boils down to a racist law known as the Indian Act. This piece of legislation has been around for some time, originally enacted in 1876. What you might not know is the law prevents Indians living on a reserve from owning their own property. They have to rely on politicians called the chief and band council to grant them housing and maintain their home's condition. Under the law, they're not even allowed to sell real estate even if they renovate the home they live in. They can't recoup their money by selling the home. So no wonder so many reserves look like slums. Indians are prohibited from getting a mortgage, a business loan, or even leasing a car. Seriously, read the Indian Act. They can't even sell meat or agricultural produce cultivated from their land to anyone off the reserve without special government permission. And even after an Indian dies, the Indian Act lets the government overrule their last will and testament if it's not in the interests of the banned politicians or the federal government. There you have it. Equality for all? Yeah, not quite.
Most people had no idea that's what the Indian Act did to people.
Yeah, I didn't know that the politicians had control over your last will and testament.
But we do have to warn you, just because Ezra Levant brought you that clip doesn't mean he has any credibility as a journalist.
No, every once in a while, though, they have a glimmer of, reality.
And we are encouraging Sun News to start telling the story about poverty and the way legislated poverty occurs within Idle No More and within their campaign against that poverty.
And we'll be talking a little bit more later about how Sun News is going for public funding.
I know, I love that one. You know what, though? If you're an activist, remember, activism is winning. So make sure you slow down. Use your brains and get active. Don't stop. Don't wait for somebody to get out there and tell you what to do. Make a sign, get out there, and take the initiative.
And remember, it's more important than ever to be active now.
Yes.
Because we live in a very integral part of history.
We're intelligent, we've got brain cells, we're an incredibly peaceful and motivated, technologically advanced society. Major news is not covering it because they've only got car accidents and the latest tragedy to flash in front of you. We're not like that. Let's run a clip. Yes? What do you got?
Okay, well, Teresa Spence went on a hunger strike over the weekend.
Okay.
This is some reaction from some people around her.
Okay, let's do it.
The fight does not end because the hunger strike ends. The fight continues. We have immobilized a nation. We have immobilized our tribal territories.
The pledge to keep the Aboriginal protest going, even as Teresa Spence has officially ended her hunger strike. The CBC's Amanda Pfeffer joins us from Ottawa with all the highlights. So let's start with Chief Teresa Spence's health. How is she doing?
She is still in hospital. We understood that at the request of her partner last night, she decided to, in fact, go to the hospital. She was going to do it today after the press conference, after the honoring ceremony that was going to take place this afternoon. But her partner convinced her to go. They took her in. They kept her overnight. She's still on an IV, and they're watching her, and she's still under observation.
And Amanda, what happens next in all of this?
They were asked about what does this mean? They've all agreed to this 13-point program, and we're talking about members of the opposition, including the interim Liberal leader Bob Rae, including Romeo Saganash with the New Democratic Party. Saganash has said that on Monday they plan to introduce what he's calling an intervention that they will only describe on Monday. It coincides with the opening of Parliament on Monday. Let's have a listen to Bob Rae at this press conference.
What we're trying to do here is actually respect the Canadian tradition, how things used to be done. We've under this government, we've diminished ourselves. We've diminished this issue.
So Bob Rae also talking about the need then to create some political will.
I appreciate this, Amanda. Thank you.
Okay, Rashmi.
So on the day Chief Spence is ending her hunger strike, a new survey is actually suggesting she may not have public opinion on her side. A poll conducted for CBC News by Nanos Research suggests 54% of Canadians believe Spence's campaign will not advance the cause of First Nations people. Only about 18% of those surveyed believe it will. Almost 30% of those questioned were unsure. At the same time, the poll found 64% of people questioned were aware of the Idle
Of course,
No
we
More
do have to
protests.
tell you that those polls are only done. They only poll white people who own 2 homes, have 2 cars, 2 visas, and 2 kids in college.
And I don't know how good a sampling you get from 1,000 people.
1,000 people.
That was the number of people in the poll, yeah.
33 million Canadians and 64% saturation knowing about Idle No More.
Yes, that's 42% who didn't know about it, or 44% who did not know about it.
Yes, but remember, they don't have the internet. That would be most of the news editors.
Yeah, I know. Well, it just goes to show how well our media is informing the public.
What we're doing here at Radio Free Canada, and the reason why we've started our $15,000 legal fund to fight censorship imposed upon us by Castanet, is that, you know, we talk about the stories and what's important. We actually do research on stories. And that's one thing that we're not getting is background. Look at CBC, look at Global. You will not hear the reasons why there's legislated poverty.
That's true. You will from Press TV, though, from Iranian TV.
Okay, so it's strange. We've got to go overseas to find out about the story. So let's run this, yes?
Yes, they talk about the points that the band wanted to make.
Okay.
In Canada, a prominent tribal chief says she will end her 6-week hunger strike over Aboriginal rights. Teresa Spence made the decision after opposition parties and Indigenous leaders signed a declaration spelling out 13 specific demands they will present to the government. The declaration calls for improvements to housing and schools on reserves. It also calls for an immediate meeting between the Crown, the federal and provincial governments, and all First Nations to discuss treaty and non-treaty related relationships. Spence launched the hunger strike in December to pressure the government into meeting the Aboriginals' demands. The decision spurred a grassroots protest across the country. Press TV's Joshua Blakey, our correspondent, joins me from Calgary. Joshua, what else do we know about the Aborigines' demands, their demands that they've put forward? And what is the chance that the Canadian federal government respect these demands and guarantee them?
Canada's Aboriginals would like to envisage a Canada which would be consistent with Canadian law, incidentally, that exists like the European Union, where Aboriginals relate to Canada, to the Crown, to the Canadian state on a nation-to-nation basis. And that is the crux of this 13-point demand. It's yet to be seen whether the Harper government will respond to them or will continue to kowtow to the interests of resource companies who profit lucratively from the despoilation of the resources that lie in the hinterland in Canada, underneath the historic territories of Canada's Indigenous peoples.
Indeed. Press TV's Joshua Blake, now correspondent reporting from Calgary there. Joshua, thanks.
And of course, we haven't seen the issues laid out like that well. Okay.
No.
So, I mean, Sun News came up with that one, but Ezra Levant produced it, which was kind of shaky.
Actually, that last clip was from the CBC.
Was it?
Or no, it was from Press TV.
Press TV. Okay, so get informed, because Press TV is from overseas. It's from the Middle East.
Yes, but they're on an anti-Canadian crusade, because...
They actually do journalism.
Because they actually do journalism, yeah, according to the National Post, anyway.
A first-year journalism student could see through the smokescreen of what's going on. I want to run one more clip of background here to get information out there. There's another Press TV, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so let's run this. You make up your mind, because remember, Radio Free Canada, we don't make commercials saying, trust us.
We say do your own research.
All right, so get informed.
A Canadian rights group accuses Prime Minister Stephen Harper of fostering hatred of Aboriginal people across the nation by refusing to meet their demands. Ellen Gabriel of the Indigenous Women of Turtle Island says Harper is also refusing to condemn the growing racist reactions to protests organized by the Idle No More movement. The Indigenous communities, also known as the First Nations, have been protesting against their poor living conditions and high unemployment rate. Recently, several First Nation chiefs met with the Premier. They say the progress made was not enough to stall the protest campaign. Now, the Assembly of First Nations has renewed its call for a fresh meeting with Harper and Governor David Johnston on January the 24th. Joining us now via Skype from Calgary, Canada, is our correspondent Joshua Blakeney to tell us a bit more. It is very prevalent amongst the mainstream Canada to label the Aboriginals as lazy, as drug addicts, as more prone to crime than the average Canadian citizen. This is a systematic, concerted effort of racism against these people now, isn't it?
Well, indeed. And of course, people's opinions are formed by the mainstream media. And so you have this problem where you have the media in Canada disproportionately influenced by people who are trying to celebrate colonialism. We know, of course, with this concept of the war on terror, this Islamophobic war on terror, that has been invented to a large extent by Western media outlets, Zionists ensconced in Western media outlets. And so the same people aren't going to allow the Canadian public to know the truth about Canada's Aboriginals, that they're victims of state criminality, that they've been displaced and dispossessed, that they're the victims of racism. In fact, they've made a political climate in Canada where it's actually a vote winner for politicians to say, oh, I'm going to fight these, lazy Indians and take them on who are stealing all your tax dollars, hardworking Canadians. And so we have to, I think, focus in on the Canadian media.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Joshua Blakeney there, our correspondent joining us via Skype from Calgary. Joshua, thank you for your comments here on Press TV.
So once again, we're telling you to use your brains, do your research. But remember this, that the Black News Group sent out a memo to all of the Black news outlets saying that they were not to do a positive story on Indian land claims negotiations.
Now, is the Black News Group part of the Quebecor group as well?
Well,
that's the guys who own Sun News Media.
We have all of 6 owners, corporate owners of all media in North America. The story is not getting out, and that's well known. Look at Democracy Today. Okay?
Yeah.
But you've got a clip here. Let's run the clip.
That should be
this media outlet, this newspaper, the Toronto Sun, Sun News Media, Sun News Network, choose words that incite, that mislead people, that get people thinking the wrong things, that get people turning against a peaceful movement. That's what this reporter was doing out here. Report, that's not right.
Oh, man, it's so good to be back at work again,
It's nice to see people taking an interest in how the media is presenting their side of things.
Walter Cronkite would not put up with it. Peter Jennings, and actually, there's been a lot of major newscasters that have come out and talked about it. There's also an HBO special called The Newsroom that you can watch that talks directly about the way the right wing has hijacked news and refuses to produce the story about poverty or corruption.
Or any other kind of crime that goes on.
Remember, CHBC News covers a car accident in Williams Lake, but will not cover another case of police brutality. We're going to keep you informed. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
And this is Radio Free Canada.